Hey folks, Tyler here, and so today we're going to talk about AWS Identity Center. Now, similarly to IAM, which allows us to manage identities like users, groups, and roles and permissions within our AWS account, AWS Identity Center integrates with AWS Organizations, which means we can actually manage centrally all of the identities and permission sets across all of our AWS accounts. So let's go ahead and see how this works here. So after AWS Organizations is enabled, that account becomes the AWS management account. And then any other AWS account in the organization is called an AWS member account. So you could have, just a couple accounts, or we could have hundreds or dozens of accounts in here. And then what happens if we enable an organizational feature like Identity Center? We enable that in the management account. And after doing so, because all of our AWS accounts are linked to the organization, what happens is this service-linked IAM role gets deployed, and it's called the AWS service role for SSO. So this is an IAM role, service-linked role that gets deployed to every member account. And it's this role that makes any changes that we determine within Identity Center. Like, for example, if we want to push a new user group and permission set to an account, it's the service role for SSO that does this. So let's take a look into Identity Center. Now, Identity Center is a regional service, which means we can actually deploy it wherever we want. So for example, we could do something like US West 2. Now with Identity Center, the identities that we manage are users and groups. And then we also have permission sets, which are just IAM policies. Let's say that we've created a user, and then we want to assign that user to a group. Maybe we have a group called engineering. So we've got the engineering group, and then we also select a permission set or multiple permission sets. And then we also select an AWS account or multiple AWS accounts. And then once we've selected the group, the permission set, and then the account, this AWS service role for SSO then goes and makes the changes in the member accounts, whichever one we've selected here, or if we've selected multiple or all of them, it's this role that makes those changes. Now we can manage users and groups within Identity Center, or what we can actually do too is Identity Center will integrate with something called an IDP, an identity provider. Now these IDPs could be something like Okta, Active Directory, Google Workspace, and more. And so what this means is we can take users and groups and we can actually push them to Identity Center. And so now this gives us the ability to be using our existing identities in AWS Identity Center. And then we can push those identities along with a permission set to each AWS member account. So that's essentially AWS Identity Center in a nutshell. It allows us to create identities within Identity Center or import existing identities from our IDPs like Okta or Active Directory. It allows us to centrally manage those identities and permission sets and then assign those to AWS accounts within our organization. So this video was really just kind of the theory about how it all works. In the next video, we'll take a look at doing some technical hands-on work, setting up Identity Center, and deploying permission sets and identities to our AWS accounts within an AWS organization.